Okay, so welcome to another Feature Fridays, and today I'm joined again by Jörg. So Jörg, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jörg Lev. I'm a technical product manager in VMware's Cloud Provider business unit.
Thanks, Jörg. And my name is Guy Bartram. I'm product marketing manager for the Cloud Director suite of products. And today we're here to discuss what is really a very cool product, I think, and something that's really changing the direction quite fundamentally for Cloud Director, and that is App Launchpad, right? Delivering applications as a service, an application platform as a service experience to your tenant. And we're going to discuss specifically 2.0, which is released now with VCD 10.2 and also supports the 10.2 code base in Cloud Director Service. Because 10.2 brings some kind of really cool aspects to it, doesn't it, Jörg?
Yeah, so for App Launchpad, there have been a lot of cool improvements. First, it is much easier now for you as a service provider to set up the subscriptions to the marketplace and to manage your application images that you want to publish into the App Launchpad catalog. For tenant user, so the consumers of these services, we have some improvements that it makes just the user experience much better, more catalog style, so you can have some categories and so on. And then there's the big new functionality that App Launchpad now supports Helm charts, so Kubernetes images that can be deployed, applications that are defined as Kubernetes images as part of these Helm charts that can be deployed into container service extension managed Kubernetes clusters in the VCD environment.
So that's now coming right full circle. So we've done container service extension, we've done native Kubernetes. Now we've got Tanzu Basic with on-prem VCD and native Kubernetes with CDS or on-prem VCD. So you, as a service provider now, you can, at last, you can deliver container cluster as a service, Kubernetes cluster as a service to your customers. But now you can actually help drive consumption of that by giving them and giving the tenants, internal customers, access to this marketplace of services in a very simple catalog view, where the tenant consumer doesn't need to know anything about the underlying infrastructure. As far as he's concerned, I want that application, I want a small, medium, large, or whatever the designations are from the experience, and I just want to deliver it. And whether it gets delivered as a VM, VApp, or now as a container, they don't need to know, do they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that works for all sorts of components or applications that you would want to need as a tenant end user. So the marketplace and the App Launchpad is very agnostic about the format. You can have applications that run as VApps out of the box and contain the whole VApp functionality, so the whole workload that you want to have, like a fully blown e-commerce application, for example. But it also can work, of course, with components that are being used by rather software developer users. And these software developers, they typically just want components like a Mongo database or some Kafka messaging service infrastructure piece, but they don't want to maintain and download and install a very complex just that component, because they want to consume it. They need it as part of their application that they are developing. And that is something where App Launchpad also comes in, because that helps you as a provider to offer these different application components to your developer user tenants.
And there's kind of two things I want to zoom into there. First of all is the delivery of applications, right? So now we support with App Launchpad 2.0, we support VMware Cloud Marketplace, which includes the Bitnami portfolio of applications. And that is now free for providers. So you have to sign an MSP contract, but essentially you don't pay any cost for those applications. And like you're saying, if you wanted, for example, a Mongo database, the big advantage with getting it from a VMware cloud provider now is that Mongo database has come from Bitnami. It's tested for security, it's tested for functionality, and it's released to the Bitnami catalog. So you can always get the latest version that's been properly tested, rather than what developers would traditionally do, which would be go and grab it from wherever they could find it, not knowing really anything about the security posture of that application. And then I guess secondly, when you're looking at the output of your developers are going to be developing applications. If you're a software house, obviously they're going to be developing applications for the market, but it's very probable for larger enterprises that your developers can be developing applications for you, and you need to then have a way of publishing that application back to your consumers inside your organization. And that's also great in App Launchpad 2.0, right? We support custom applications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that both, again, in the VApp format as well as Helm charts. So you can add either the public VMware Cloud Marketplace for as a repository for the catalog, or the Bitnami Helm chart repository, but you can also add your own either Helm chart repository that's perhaps part of this sort of artifactory environment where your own application developers store their built applications for in-house applications. Or you can use, of course, just your custom OVA files that contain the images that you as a service provider want to offer to your tenants. And all of that now happens through the portal, so through the provider portal where you set up App Launchpad. So there's no need to manually work with any metadata configurations like we had to do earlier in App Launchpad.
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely awesome progress. Okay, so I think that's covered like the main updates, right? Container support, integration with Cloud Marketplace, Bitnami being free, running in Cloud Director service, custom applications. There's also been a bunch of management enhancements, which we'll go through when we see the demo. And I think the last one, which is also developer centric, right, is the public API, the introduction of the new API.
So that's something with App Launchpad 2.0. We introduced an API for both provider processes and consumer processes. For the provider processes, that allows you to, just manage the catalog themselves, which applications you want to publish to which tenants. That's part of perhaps some, let's say, service offering process and automation that you might have. And then for a consumer, there's the consumer API where you, from that catalog that you got published from the provider, you now programmatically through the REST API can publish and deploy new components.
So as an application developer, not only are you getting all of the secure tooling from Bitnami and the service provider, and they might provide their own gold bills or whatever, but then you're also getting the ability to call and automate the call of more services through the API. Right? This is really exciting for me. I think this is where we've wanted to move Cloud Director for a number of years, and it's I'm so happy to see it. So, without any more talking, let's dig in.
Yeah, let's see this. I'm going to start sharing my browser window here. So here I'm logged in to Cloud Director as a provider system administrator, and we do have all the different view of our organizations here. We will later see the CC02 organization. That's the one where my main tenant is going to use for the demo the App Launchpad catalog. When you install App Launchpad, it will automatically create a new, let's say, internal organization that is used for just to host the App Launchpad catalogs, because catalogs in VCD need to be, in the object model, need to be owned by an organization, and that's why App Launchpad automatically creates this organization. There's also, just to get that off the plate, as usual, special roles and permissions added when you add the App Launchpad extension, which typically happens automatically. And depending on the version of VCD, you might need to configure App Launchpad to use the external AMQP service if you have an VCD version older than 10.2. Okay. If you have a new installation with 10.2, VCD 10.2 and App Launchpad 2.0, then there is no additional other component needed. You install App Launchpad on some external, typically a CentOS Linux system, and then just connect it to VCD, and it uses the internal MQTT message bus and the API extensions of VCD.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. With that, let's see in the More menu.
It does actually raise a question. So can you use App Launchpad 2.0 with older versions of VCD, say 10.1 or 10.0?
Yeah, you I checked. I think in the release notes we state the compatible versions for App Launchpad, but since App Launchpad uses well, the metadata system of VCD that has been there for a bunch of versions, it typically also supports older versions. The only thing I think for the container services and the Helm chart support, you need the VCD 10.2.
Okay, got it.
Just the way how internal these container servers are, or the Kubernetes clusters are managed. Okay, yeah, first of all, let's see, well, we got some new introduction that helps the service provider to use the App Launchpad. So when you set up, it gives you some first steps that you want to do as a service provider to use App Launchpad. We do have the overview in the dashboard, which applications are being used, how many organizations have access to the catalog, how many applications they are using. We do have, well, the access management tab, which didn't change a lot since App Launchpad 1. So that's the way where you publish the catalogs to the different organizations. Pretty straightforward. Then the applications where you manage your catalog content. So which applications you want to offer as part of your app catalog to the tenants. And then within the settings, there are a lot of small improvements here. So with the settings, let's just quickly go through them. We have the sizing templates, where you just define which size of the newly deployed VApps the tenant should be able to select. We got the deployment settings, where you define the default settings for each organization. So define which org VDC, which networks in these org VDCs, which storage profiles and so on should be used for that one-click deployment experience. So that's something where you as a provider typically have to spend some time to define these default settings. They are also available through the API, so you can automate that if you want. But the idea is that you as a provider will one time spend that effort to define the defaults, and then as a end user, I don't need to care about them anymore. I get my one-click deployment experience that I just order from the catalog, type in the name of the new application, hit deploy, and then the VApp gets deployed using these default settings without me as a user need to care about them.
Okay. Just one thing on that. If you're deploying, let's say a database and a web server, for example, how does this take care of? How does the automation here take care of the intercommunication of those two? Would they have to be within the same rooted VApp?
Yeah, so that is something. Currently, the App Launchpad supports single VM applications, but you can connect them to either directly to external networks, or you can connect them to internal networks, and then you have these different components connected to the same typically routed internal or VDC network.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we got the featured applications where you just define sort of a special section in the catalog.
Yeah.
We got categories where you can just make it easier for the structure of the application.
These are all new, these fields and these management.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool.
Makes it easier now. Yeah. Then we got some additional custom details where you add additional details like a support contact or links to further documentation for the catalog items. Then the catalog visibility just to show which of the catalogs you want to offer.
Yeah.
That's just internal how the catalogs are used. Then the new thing is we got our marketplace connection. So that is something earlier with older version of App Launchpad, you had to go to the cloud marketplace and then sort of configure the subscriptions to the marketplace items on the marketplace, and the marketplace pushes the templates more or less to VCD. That's now much easier because you can define here in the App Launchpad configuration the connection to the marketplace, and then you can configure everything from App Launchpad. We will see that in a second without the need to go to the marketplace.
Okay, so it's just more of a pull rather than a push.
Yeah. It uses the same mechanisms, the catalog subscription mechanism in VCD. It's just now it's all out of the done from the App Launchpad provider portal here in the VCD portal. So easier to set up. The token itself, that's something you configure in the user configuration of your marketplace organization. We define the token and manage the token. And then for the Helm chart repositories, that's for the new types of applications that are based on Kubernetes Helm chart. That's where you can add some, well, the links to the different Helm chart repositories. Like here, I defined the public one from Bitnami, but you can also add your own Helm chart repository. That would be something if you have an in-house repository as a service provider or a big enterprise where your well, developers store the finished projects, the finished products and components that they have to that repository, then you as a provider would set up the connection here for your internal repository.
So this repository, is this then, are you able to segregate out different repositories for different organizations?
So that repository means that App Launchpad itself, when you define the application, has access to the repository. And you then, in the App Launchpad, in the application configuration, we will see that in a minute, select which catalog you want to have, which repository. So there's a different a different level in between them. It's not that you publish one repository to a certain tenant, but in the App Launchpad application section here, you define how your catalogs are being structured. And then you publish your defined catalogs to the individual tenants, which gives you more flexibility.
Yeah, much more flexibility. Okay, that's great.
Okay, yeah, let's see that. Here I already have a whole bunch of applications configured for demo purposes, but let's see how we would add some new things in here. So if I click the add new, you can see the three different options that you have. You can either use the VMware Marketplace and image from the VMware Marketplace. You can select from a Helm chart repository the application that's hosted on that repository, or if you want to have your own custom application with an existing OBA file that you have, then you would choose the VM application here. And let's go through them just to see the additional next steps change a bit depending on your selection here. Right. If we start with the marketplace, in the next step, you then get the whole list of all the 129 Bitnami images or other third-party images that are stored in the VMware Marketplace. You can select one here, one that I hopefully don't have yet. You can select the autosync to really have it a subscription so that the always the latest version is part of the catalog. That's something if you have some application where, well, for new deployments, you want to automatically always choose the latest version. Again, they are maintained by the Bitnami and by the marketplace team or the third-party vendor. So you can sort of, that's the whole point of the Bitnami managing these images, as you mentioned, that they are nurtured and well maintained in terms of security and configuration settings.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would be able to select the versions individually here, which makes sense for some applications where there are well, big architectural changes and you want to give the consumers really the option, I want to get the new version or I intentionally perhaps need an older version for something. And
the replace existing version with new version, is that going to overwrite what's available in the catalog? It's not going to do an upgrade, right?
Yeah. So that is something that hasn't changed for the stuff that's being deployed through App Launchpad. So the applications that your tenant users deploy into their org VDCs, they are well deployed from the catalog, but once they are running, they're independent from any catalog items. So they are not automatically being updated. That's something where the application owner sort of has to take care of updating the application itself then.
So just out of interest, if you selected autosync on there and you had an application that was, I don't know, being updated quite frequently, you're potentially going to have a very, very long list of updates. Is there any way of containing that and saying like the last 10 updates or? Yeah,
so that is something for the autosync. I think in the marketplace configuration of that subscription, you can define how many of the older versions also would be there in the catalog.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Then the next step is select the catalog. So that's your VCD catalog that you then can offer to your different tenants and review that. And then in the next step, I would hit the add button, and then we can see that a subscription is being created, and eventually in the backend, VCD is going to import that image that OVA image into the catalog, which depending on your internet connection takes some time here. Yeah, let's quickly go. You can see catalog synchronization started and so on, and that now takes some time. Let's see how it works for the Helm-chart repository. That's pretty comparable. So you select your Helm-chart repository. Again, here the Bitnami images, but could also be your on-prem repository. And then you get the different applications that are in the repository here. And again, you select one that I have not done yet. Go through that and then select the catalog. Review it and add that to your catalog as well. And then let's go through the third option, which is the custom VM application. So that's a VM application where you as a service provider provide the OVA file. And then you have here all the, well, the description fields and the logo file and so on that you want to add here. From a provider, you can define the version. You would be able to upload a logo file, and then you.
So how do you see this in comparison to the traditional catalog that BCD's been kind of using before?
So it is sort of a front end for that catalog, and helps you to manage the catalog and publish these catalogs to tenants in a more easier to consume way, because you add all this corresponding metadata, which in the regular catalog you only would see in the description field. But here you can have, well, multiple different description fields, some version, logos, and so on. So it's just a nice user experience for the catalogs.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you would be able to select a category or create a new category here. And in the next step, again, these are the fields that you might want to add or change in the settings that we've seen before. So here's where you add additional documentation. Markdown is supported, so you could even do some more fancy, I don't know, including some images and videos for your description, just to make it as easy as possible again for your users to use this catalog.
And here's where you could perhaps put some pricing information, maybe?
Would be possible as well, yeah. So far, the pricing information is just static, so you would enter a price. There is no integration yet with vRealize Operations or Tenant app for the pricing.
Right.
Okay, yeah, then you add, select the catalog, again, review, and then hit that add button, and then again, VCD would upload or download the OVA file from that URL that you gave it and added it to the catalog.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so that's the view and the typical workflow from a provider perspective. The only thing then that's left once you've done that and created your catalog items and created your catalog itself is go to the access management and then publish the different catalogs that you have defined to your applications. So just go through here with the catalog and then the relationship for the different applications. In my case, only shows well the organizations that do not yet have any catalogs published. Otherwise, if it's already published, then the organizations show up here.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, with that, let me log out here from the provider portal. And now let's have
and just before we finish with the kind of administrative part. So one of the other aspects of this is the API. So in what kind of functionality do you see the API being used from an administration perspective? Would this be to kind of sync new service offerings or get a read of what's being kind of downloaded and utilized?
Yeah, so for the APIs, let's see. You can find, as usual, the API description and the reference on code.vmware.com. You just search for Cloud Director App Launchpad. And you can see here that there are these different API endpoints for the catalogs, for the instances, for the applications themselves, the repositories, marketplace, and so on, and the system and statistics. And if you look through the different APIs that are available here, you can see that it's pretty much the whole configuration and all these different tasks that we currently went through manually, you can also automate through the APIs. So common things that you might want to automate is really to publish the catalogs that you created to new organizations when they order that sort of service, or when you enable them for that service. So that might be just a part of your regular tenant onboarding, where you create a new org VDC, you, I don't know, do some network settings to have some network edge creation, user creation, and so on. And then there's one part, oh, you can also publish these App Launchpad catalog to the new organization to have that as one step in the onboarding.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So you could link this with your onboarding process as customers decide they want to have, I don't know, app modernization catalog of apps, then you can simply just link this to your business support systems when a contract goes through and have it all automated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah. And then there's, well, for other things that you might want to automate is just for the application instances. That's where you get a list of the, well, you can, as a tenant user, programmatically launch the apps and trigger the launch of a new application, or you get a list of the apps that are being launched, so to some sort of a inventory management, and just get an overview which are the mainly used applications, where the interests of your tenants, which catalog items are not used, and so on. So it helps a bit for just get a feeling of what your tenants are using.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. I'm here now logged in as an organization administrator into my tenant portal. So I get the tenant view with the different org VDCs, where I can see the VMs and the VApps that are already running in my environment. Later for the demo, you can see we do have container service extension installed here, and the tenant already has deployed a few Kubernetes clusters that are up and running. So that's sort of the CSE part. Important to understand is the ones that are running with the K-01 and store at the end. These are the ones that you can select to deploy the Helm charts to, that we will see in a second.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, then let's get to the App Launchpad extension here.
And if you only wanted your tenant users to only see App Launchpads, is there a way of kind of limiting what they can access? So it's like, we just want to give you access to consume these apps, nothing more, nothing less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's currently not really possible, because the main user management is really based on the different actions that you can do, like different options for the system settings, for VApp deployment and working with the VApps. But currently there is no way to sort of customize the portal based on user permissions. However, that is something that we have in our backlog and are considering for future versions for VCD to just make App Launchpad, let's say, more prominent, visible in the Cloud Director portal.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in the App Launchpad, you can see the catalog view. So we have the different catalog items that we, as a provider, got published or have published through to the tenant. And then, depending on if it's a container image or a regular VApp image, you would just go to the launch button, and then, you get the one-click experience. As a tenant user, I would just hit the launch button here, and it starts deploying this Alfresco application here. Optional. If I just do that, then obviously all the default settings are being used to deploy. So it takes the default setting for the storage profile and the network connection and the sizing policy. Otherwise, if I want to change that and want to dig a bit deeper as a user, you can select the organization VDC, the sizing profile, and then the IP address configuration, some advanced settings where you might add some scripts, stored profiles, and so on.
And those sizing profiles, they were set by the administrator at the start. We kind of walked through that. Do they then apply for all of the applications, kind of as a generic sizing?
Yeah, these are generic sizing policies just for App Launchpad deployments.
Yeah.
So they are not related to the sizing policies or the sizing profiles that you define for new VMs in the regular VCD.
So they're not well, they are application specific here, but actually you're defining them for the whole catalog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we have. We got a lot of feedback that it makes sense for to have some more fine-grained sizing policies on a per application base, because you might want to have different sizing profiles for a web server than a big database server, for example.
Sure.
So that's something on the roadmap.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then we can see, well, there's no magic in there. When I click the launch button, the VApp is being deployed, and we should see in the task list that it takes some time, and these are regular tasks in VCD. So now a template from the catalog is being deployed into the Org VDC.
Awesome.
When I select from the marketplace container image, then in the Launchpad, it's a bit comparable. The only thing different is that you then select your Kubernetes cluster. And since these are Helm charts in the advanced settings, you get access directly to the YAML file that represents this Helm chart. So that's something, well, again, depending on your target group, if I want to use just a service as it is, you typically don't care about that. If you are a developer and you consume that service later in a special fashion, then you typically know about all the different settings that are possible in the in this YAML file, and how to use and how to configure them.
Okay, that's cool. Makes absolute sense. So yeah, you've got complete flexibility then on the YAML and what you want to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if you hit the application, the launch application here, that will then eventually deploy that application onto the Kubernetes cluster.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, yeah, from the My Application view, there's no big changes here. So that's sort of a subset of the regular VM view in the data centers for App Launchpad for all the VMs and containers that are being, container applications that are being deployed through App Launchpad. And once they are up and running, so in my case, it's still deploying and still setting up, so I don't see any IP address here. For the ones that are running, once the customization is through, you can see the IP address in here, and then depending on the network connection, well, you can connect to that IP address.
Sure, and you can set up external IP as well by the looks of things.
Yeah, external IP or internal IP, depending again on the different network configuration of the Org VDC.
Right.
You can open the console for the virtual machines here. You get some basic power operations like power on, power off, and delete, or you can just view them in the regular data center view, so that sort of jumps it over to the VDC view. So that's the regular VM and data center view, where we now see this demo 01 virtual machine, and open that up, and that's now a regular tenant portal of VCD with the different virtual machines where you can see them. You can access the console here. Eventually, you will be able to see their IP address allocation and so on, and then get access to that.
Yeah, yeah. So just from a kind of a more sort of rounded position on what you can now do, this capability is really great because it's exposing, the application platform as a service functionality in VCD, and obviously will drive much more consumption of the VCD platform overall. But just to kind of make sure I understand that today, you can't necessarily meter on those individual applications. You can still do your metering on overall consumption as you would normally do, but in terms of the ability to see, this tenant has deployed this Alfresco app and of this size, et cetera, that's to come, right?
Yeah, that's something that we have in the roadmap of better integration between App Launchpad and the Tenant app. So that first of all, you really can get some sort of pricing information into the catalog, just to get a more complete catalog user experience. And then on the other hand, also the automatic integration for the actual metering. Right now, there is no such integration, but on the other hand, well, there's no magic in there. App Launchpad sort of is an automation that deploys regular VMs and VApps into the data centers. So these VMs that are running in here and the VApps that are running in here will of course show up in VR Ops and the Tenant app, and then you can, they are part of the regular build generation in the Tenant app. What you can do, that's something that, however, needs some additional automation to be done from a provider perspective, is to automate the metadata creation and then use these generic metadata fields in the Tenant app for the pricing policies to create some application-specific pricing.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is fantastic, Jörg. And is there anything else to see here for 2.0?
No, that's pretty much it. We've shown the API description. Guess we could, I mean, you can use Postman or any other API client to do these API calls, but they are not too excited, to be honest. I mean, you get a list, JSON list of all your apps back, and then depending on the get post, you can start the deployment as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I'm so excited about this, because I think this is, really front and central to what providers need to kind of progress into, that ability to deliver more varied applications directly to the consumer. So very, very happy to see this, and the container support is brilliant, particularly the way it's all just now nicely linked with CSE. And I guess that it doesn't matter whether it's a Tanzu cluster or a native containers Kubernetes cluster, it just sees it as a cluster, right?
Yeah, that is correct. So currently in App Launchpad 2.0, all the Kubernetes clusters are supported that are managed through container service extensions. We do have on our roadmap to support generic container or generic Kubernetes cluster as an endpoint. But right now, when you deploy a container-based image from the catalog, you just get a list of all the Kubernetes clusters that are managed through CSE in that organization.
Yeah, that's fine. And just kind of one more thing, while I'm thinking about it. If you were to, obviously deploying Bitnami applications is fine, and deploying your own custom applications is fine. But if you start looking at third parties, contractually, you have a contract with them, not with VMware. That's correct, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important to understand. So App Launchpad gets VMware Marketplace or custom application or custom repository items into the catalog, and then you use App Launchpad as a provider to get that catalog offering and publish the catalog to the tenant. However, that does not involve any sort of special usage or licensing. So that means depending on, for all third-party items, it's still the same licensing options that you would have before without App Launchpad if the end customer goes to the marketplace and gets the images from there. And there are different models. So we have third-party applications that can be, I think, transacted into a provider program as part of the VMware provider program. And for other ones, there are either you as a provider are in contract with the third-party vendor, and then they have some sort of a provider program themselves. Or, and that's also a very common thing, you as a provider, you just offer the image here. I think that's an example for the marketplace. We have some GitLab Enterprise application in there, and then it would be some bringing your own license idea. So whenever that VM starts up at the first step in the first screen, because before you can use it as an end user, then I bring my license key and add that to
that's cool,
to the application. Great. And then the end user is the contract and the customer of the application vendor.
Okay, that's good to know. And I guess you can interrogate the API and see how many instances of that third-party application is actually running in the environment, so you can use it for metering if that's the way the third-party metric is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that helps here as well, that you get that programmatically. It's the launched app get view, and then you have a whole set of filters that you can filter based on the name, based on certain attributes, and so on.
Fantastic. Well, Jörg, listen, thank you very much. Super excited about this, and thanks for walking us through the new 2.0 updates, and look forward to seeing more of it.
Yeah, thanks. See you next time.
Take care. Thanks.